Hey everybody, welcome back to the Nerdcast. It is Devin broadcasting as always live from an undisclosed location in the center of Texas. Hope you're all doing well. I hope your bank accounts are faring better than mine after a day spent dropping $1,600 on my car. I have it back. It's fixed. I'm just swallowing that pill. It was something that needed to be done, and of course they're going to uncover other issues, etc., etc. But it's never easy. It's never easy to part with a huge chunk of cash, for me at least, in one sitting. Add to that the fact that, today was the day that I had to pay some bills too. This song is making me feel a little better though. This is a nice, cheerful, bouncy song, so I'm feeling a little bit better hearing it. Okay. Let me just get into it then. Let me just get right into it. So, many years ago, One Piece dropped as a new series. I can't even remember when it came out, when it actually started, but at the time, I think I may have been watching Naruto. Oh, did it really start in 1999? Damn, okay, so it was before Naruto then. I mean, that just tells you how long this thing's been going on. But I hadn't heard anything about it until I had been watching Naruto for a while. I remember people were popping off about it. They were like, oh, this show's great, blah, 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 all that stuff. And somebody mentioned it, brought it up to me, and was like, oh, if you like that, you'd like this, etc. And I was like, all right, I'll give it a shot. Tried watching it, couldn't get into it. I let it just kind of lie for many years. Came back to it several years ago. Wanted to give it another shot because people were talking about it again. Started watching it, couldn't get into it. Gave up on it pretty early on. I think both of my first attempts probably lasted about 6 or 7 episodes. I didn't get super deep into it. Fast forward to, I guess, just this past February. If you go back, watch my streams from back then, you will remember that I was all about pirates back then. I think one of my YouTube viewers, Loa, I believe it was, recommended to me that I play Sid Meier's Pirates. And I did, and I got super into it, that I got super into pirate lore, started watching all these pirate videos, playing all these other pirate games. That's where Captain Bones came from. Downloading Captain Bones, I was looking for any variety of pirate-based games. I decided around that time, you know what, I'm actually going to give One Piece a pirate-esque themed show. I'm gonna give it a solid shot. I'm actually gonna sit down and force myself to watch it. And I did. I really forced myself to watch it. I made it past the first few episodes that I would usually quit around. It got a little interesting here and there, but I was still really just going through the motions, just forcing myself to watch this show. And eventually forcing myself to watch it became a bit of a habit. Like, I was watching it not because I was super interested in the show or I wanted to know what was going to happen next in the story. It was almost like taking medicine. Like, now is the time where I forced myself to watch this show. I had that vibe for quite a while. It probably wasn't until the Alabasta arc where I actually started feeling some level of investment on the characters and the story. Right around then is when I was like, okay, you know what? I can see why people got into this. I can see. I mean, we're at that point. We're talking how many episodes? How many episodes in were we? I mean, we're at least 100 episodes in at that point. I started getting into it. I started liking it a bit, and I forced myself to go through more. But I'm mentioning this because at a certain point in watching, it became less about forcing myself to watch and became more about actually genuinely wanting to watch that next episode, wanting to see how the story unfolds. It's a pretty popular meme amongst the One Piece community, and I guess depending on which side of the line you fall on, it's either a justified meme or it's like a crime against the fandom. The meme is that One Piece doesn't get good until Water 7, which I almost completely agree with. Water 7 really does change that show. I was at the point in time when I really got super invested in One Piece. And so recently, and the reason why I'm going through the history, because the show is 1,000, right now it's currently sitting at 1,060 some odd episodes. There's a lot of episodes. 2 nights ago, I finally finished watching the last aired episode. I'm up to current now. After all 1,000 some odd episodes, I'm actually current with One Piece, which is insane. I mean, the show started in 1999 and it's still ongoing, which is ludicrous. I stuck through it. Took me about 100 some odd episodes to get really invested. That's a couple of whole ass series, really. Any other anime series would have been half of that length. I got into it, got current, and now I'm sitting here waiting for the next episode. They dropped a teaser for the next episode because it's actually pretty important for the story, at least. The coming of Joy Boy, I guess. Looks cool. I am kind of hyped for that. I guess I'm officially part of the One Piece fandom if I can be hyped about the appearance of Joy Boy. But I have to tell you, I have a lot of hatred for this show. I have a lot of hatred for this show and how it actually like manages your time, which is to say it doesn't. This show does not respect your time. It does not respect anything else but its own self-aggrandizing. And I don't know to what end. Part of it makes it feel like it's just stretching for time to soak up as much ad revenue, or I don't know what it is. I mean, it's not like they're airing like 50 ads an episode on this, so it's not like they're just trying to saturate the airwaves with ads. I don't know why they stretched this shit out so long. Now, I said I watched to current, and then there's a caveat to that. The asterisk next to that is I rode the ever-living fuck out of the fast forward button and the skip episode button. I had to have skipped at least a dozen anime series worth of episodes in this show. Like at least 100 episodes I must have skipped. And not just like the filler arcs. I watched one filler arc actually, and I didn't realize it was a filler arc that I was watching until like I was in the middle of it. It actually wasn't bad. It was pretty interesting and entertaining. So like I kept watching. Once I realized it was filler arc, I was like, am I gonna skip this? Nah, I'll keep watching. So I kept watching that one at least. That was the arc after Skypiea, when they land into the marine base. I watched that one, but I'm not even just talking about the filler arcs. Yes, there are a lot of filler arcs. I did my best to skip as many of them as possible. I think I got all of them except for that one. But even outside of the filler arcs, there are just a colossal amount of filler episodes within the mainline arcs. And it gets worse. Like it doesn't start off that bad. It doesn't seem that bad in the first few story arcs, East Blue and entering the Grand Line and stuff like that. Generally okay. Alabaster is okay. It doesn't really get bad until Skypiea. Hey Noctidi, how you doing? Welcome back to the stream. I'm just rambling to myself about One Piece here. It doesn't get bad until Skypiea. The show early on finds all of these contrived mechanisms with which to keep its most powerful characters, its most obviously story-breaking characters out of the action. So like Zoro will get lost, or Luffy will be swallowed by a snake. It gets old real fast, because then you know you're just wasting time till like the old convention where the hero shows up right in the nick of time, but like it takes them a long time to get to that point. Luffy was stuck in that snake for fucking decades. It made wrapping up Skypiea a bit of a pain in the ass. The fight was fine, and I actually like the story of Skypiea. I like the whole indigenous people having their land taken from them by some white dude with power, you know, and them fighting a war to get their land back and to get their autonomy back. All of that was cool, and the messaging there was very good, but just the pacing of the story was unbearable, at the end of it at least. I did like the Skypiea arc, but once you get to that point, it starts to get brutal. Water 7 isn't quite as bad, and Enies Lobby is not. There's still a little bit of it. There's a lot of riding on a train in Water 7, and a lot of the filler of the mainline arcs is a lot of like either running somewhere or on a train. It's very Hanna-Barbera, where it's like the background is scrolling and the character's legs are moving, but the background is very obviously repeating. In Hanna-Barbera, it saves on animation, where you can have your two characters talking and there's still some action going on the screen, and it lasts for maybe 15 seconds or so before the next set piece happens. But in One Piece, and maybe it's also for saving animation here too, but it lasts for episodes at a time, especially when you get to fucking Marineford. Marineford is a crime against humanity in that regard. So when I say that I grown to hate One Piece, it's really just the fact that as the series moves on, it disrespects your time more and more in more and more brutal ways, and it just ended up pissing me off. So like I rode that fast forward button hard, and I skipped a ton of episodes, especially in Wano. Wano is, as bad as I thought Marineford was, Wano is cruel. Wano is an arc that has been going on for 4 years. Like, it's at 177 episodes at this point, I think. 4 years. There are people who were entering 9th grade when Wano started, and they're about to go into college, and the show is still going on. There's gotta be a better way to tell these stories than just chewing through people's time like that. At any rate, the reason why I want to talk One Piece is, yes, I just caught up to current, and it's given me a lot to think about, reflecting on all of the time that I've dedicated towards absorbing this story and this world. And it made me think about, okay, was it worth it? 1,060 some odd episodes, was it really worth it? The answer I came to with that question is yes and no. What One Piece does good good, I think it does better than most other series that I've seen. I cannot with One Piece. Yeah, I know. You're not wrong for that. As much as I do like the show, when it's good, I still can't really recommend it to anyone because of how absolutely brutally disrespectful to your time that it is. It's hard enough for people to watch something like Game of Thrones. Eight seasons and hour-long episodes, like that's a big time investment, and I get that. This is just cruel. This is just cruelty beyond cruel to try to get somebody to watch all of this shit. But again, what it does really well, I think it does better than most other series. Characters. The characters I really like, except for Luffy. Luffy is annoying, but if you don't mind an annoying main character that you can mostly disregard, all the other characters are great. The Straw Hat Pirates are great. All of the other pirate groups are interesting. The captains are all interesting. And it's such a wildly diverse and eclectic group of characters. It's interesting. At a certain point, it's overwhelming even. There gets to be too many characters once you get to Dressrosa. Dressrosa introduces a lot. Like, Marineford and Dressrosa introduces a shit ton of characters, and trying to keep track of who's who and what their allegiances are, it gets to being a bit too much. But the characters are a neat draw. All of their interesting powers are cool. Seeing how they interact with each other is cool, especially in the context of the second thing that this show does really well, which is world building. And I think that's the best part of the show, is the incredibly unique world that One Piece exists in. It does a really great job of giving you a history and a sense of existence of the world without dumping exposition on you about it. There's a narrator from time to time, but I don't recall very many instances of the show just openly exposition dumping world history on you. Sometimes they'll tell you some stuff through like a Nico Robin flashback or through a Gold Roger flashback. That's fine. Everything else though, the uniqueness of things like Skypiea, the floating island, how you get there, and when they first start off the Skypiea arc and they see the giant shadows on the sea, they think that it's giants in the water. Like, that was cool. I was like, oh shit, what are those? Are those like some new kind of sea creature? What's going on there? But then at the end of the Skypiea arc, they don't outwardly explain, but they show, which is great. They show, they don't tell. That's the #1 film writing convention. Show, don't tell. They showed you exactly what happened there. The sun projects the shadow of people on the Sky Island on a clear day down towards the people that are on the ground level, and as it shoots down further away from the sky, the shadow gets bigger and bigger, so it ends up looking like a giant person. So it's like, oh, those weren't giants in the water. It was just the shadows of the Skypiea people. Kind of neat thinking about stuff like that. Like, oh, I guess that would be a thing, huh? They would cast big shadows. It does a really good job of creating a really unique world. If you like living in that world, you have fun with a lot of the characters that the show puts out there, then you can forgive a lot of the show's shortcomings. You can, especially if you don't let it waste your time. That's the one thing I will say. Don't let One Piece waste your time. Don't feel bad about skipping an episode entirely. Don't feel bad about watching an episode in fast forward thumbnails. A lot of those episodes I watched exclusively in fast forward thumbnails. I would hit the fast forward button and I would just look at the thumbnails as they scrolled by, like, okay, looks like that guy got there. There was a betrayal, it looks like. Now they're fighting. What's Chopper doing? He's doing CPR on someone. And I would just watch the episode that way and then get right to the next one. Don't get me wrong, I like extended animes, but it's hard to stomach even MHA's filler, and it's had significantly shorter runtime. Yeah, exactly. And again, I skipped all of those filler. I skipped those filler arcs, kind of justified it as, you know what, these will be good bonus episodes, when I catch up, and I'm like, I kind of want to watch more One Piece, but I watched them all. Well, I haven't watched them all. I've got the filler episodes to go back to now, and eventually I will go back and start watching some of those. So that's my justification. Do not let this show monopolize your time. It's not worth that. Few things are worth that. Yeah, for all the show does well, it's hard to get over what the show doesn't do well, which is mainly just wasting your time. All 1,060 episodes probably could have been distilled down. If you took out all the filler arc, you took out all the filler moments within the mainline arc, you could have distilled this thing down to maybe 400 episodes, which is still a lot. It would be more compact. It would tell a tighter story, might ingratiate you some of the characters more even. And that, to me, that's the interesting thing about the One Piece Netflix show. They just dropped the official trailer yesterday, I believe. Okay, so I feel a certain way, as a lot of people do, about live action adaptations of anime. I don't think they're ever good. Can't recall one that I thought, oh, that was pretty neat. Unless you want to count Detective Pikachu. I think that's kind of fence riding there. I think that's more video game based than anime based, but I'll let you have it. If you want to count Detective Pikachu, then sure, Detective Pikachu is a good live action anime adaptation. The interesting thing about One Piece for this trailer, so One Piece is very expensive. Netflix's live action One Piece reportedly has a production budget of $18 million per episode, which is insane. If you want to know why Netflix, and I don't necessarily think that they're like struggling monetarily. I think they're doing just fine. But when they talk about how they lose money on productions, I think this is a pretty good answer as to why they lose money per productions. Because 18 million per episode for a live action adaptation for an anime is absurd. I mean, it's absurd for anything. 18 million per episode is absurd. They're not sparing the budget on this one. Yeah, it's more per episode than Game of Thrones and The Mandalorian. They're not sparing the budget. They want this one to look good. They want to escape the criticism, a live action adaptation looking like cosplay. They're definitely trying to do their part to make this look good, but holy shit, that's a lot of money. Anyway, speaking of which, let's see what the budget looks like. Let's see what that 18 million per episode looks like on screen. August 31st. All right. Honestly, but as live action, it would make it too realistic, and that's what I think would trigger a failure. I think you can get away with that with Berserk. I mean, it's a dark fantasy, and Game of Thrones has shown, even The Witcher to a lesser extent, has shown that you could do dark fantasy really well, get away with a lot of stuff. 18 million for that? So, I mean, I guess that's, I can divine from that comment, 18 million for that. You're not a fan of what you just witnessed. I think, personally, it looks a lot better than I was expecting it to. Like, just aesthetically. There are some elements of it that kind of looks like cosplay. I think the sets and the set pieces look better than some of the costuming. But I think that's going to go a long way towards making it come out even in the wash in that regard. The ships look kind of cool. I mean, this shot looks kind of weird. Very J.J. Abrams. But I think I like the cast. I'll say that. I like the cast. Usopp doesn't have dreads in the anime. He has like a crazy wicked fro, but it actually looks like a good adaptation of Usopp. I could look at this guy and go, "Oh, that's Usopp." Like, I could see Usopp having these in the cartoon. So I think that's fine. I think a lot of the casting is fine for what they were trying to do. Okay, so this is going to be a part of the problem with adapting the animation to live action. Sanji's attire has always been very contemporary. He wears suits and ties and shit. In the anime, you don't really think too much about the fact that he's walking around in like a fucking Bruno Mali shoes and a fucking Hugo Boss suit and tie. You know, it's an anime. He looks slick because that's his character. But when you put that in live action next to dudes who are, dressed like Renaissance men, you've got dudes like, well, I don't know why this guy is just straight up in sunglasses. But then I guess the anime is also like that too. There are characters with sunglasses. There are characters in motorcycles and shit. It's not meant to be like a period piece. You can get away with mixing and matching different types of period themes in an animation. It comes off as weird in live action. So you have guys dressed like this, the vampire Lestat, and then they're opposite of scenes of dudes dressed like this, which is like, he's gonna sell me an Italian suit. And I think there are some scenes with Sanji that look a little off in that regard. I think this is supposed to be Garp, which is interesting casting for Garp. I do like how they're trying to keep all the characters in it. They're not like making a One Piece adaptation, but like half the characters from the anime are missing. That's always a bummer when shows do that, especially since the characters, like I mentioned earlier when I was saying one of the strengths of One Piece are its characters. It has a whole shitload of crazy ass characters. It's a strong part of the show, and you can't do an adaptation by skimping on the characters. So I'm glad that they're not doing that. Like, they've got the characters, and there's a ton of characters that show up. I don't know if these two are supposed to be someone specific, but I mean, to this point, we've seen Luffy, we've seen Nami, Zoro, we've seen Gold Roger, we've seen Garp, we've seen Usopp, the new Seagull, which is kind of a funny little thing. I've seen better YouTube fan-made trailers for a Voldemort movie for so much cheaper. Well, I mean, I think there's a lot that goes into it other than just, for starters, I think a part of the expense is, I think they actually did build some ships. To their credit, I think a lot of these pirate scenes, if you look at them out of context, it just kind of seems like scenes from like Pirates of the Caribbean. Like, Like you have the ships exploding, and you know they're raising sails, and like they're swinging onto the other ship. They're boarding the other ship. I think that all looks fine. You know, that looks good, and it should look good. I mean, there's nothing really fanciful going on in these particular scenes. I think a lot of the budget is probably dedicated to making as much of the non-fantastical stuff look good, so that when they do add the fantastical stuff, it doesn't look as weird as it probably could. And I think in some aspects they may succeed, but I think in other aspects they probably didn't succeed. I think the ships look fine. All the ocean faring stuff I think looks fine. The casting looks good. I'm not a fan of that wig. And that's another thing, is like adapting anime hairstyle in live action almost never works out. It almost never works out. I don't know. Should they have cast a natural redhead to be Nami? Maybe that would have made it look a little better. I'm not a fan of wigs in general. Sometimes if they're done really well and you don't notice it, yeah, that's great. But a lot of times you do notice it, especially in live action anime. Everybody looks like they're wearing a cosplay wig in a lot of those movies. I get that vibe with the characters in this movie too. Luffy is fine, that's just his hair, and it looks like it's just his hair, and it matches for the character too. Sanji and Nami, I don't quite know what's going on with their hair. It's kind of weird. Zoro's is fine, he's just shortcut and it's dyed green, so that's fine. But so many other characters just look kind of off with like adapting their hairstyle. I like this is cool. I mean, it doesn't look real, but it looks fine. Mihawk, his sword is ridiculous. Like this looks like a sword that you would get at Party City, honestly. There's a quality to it that I'm looking at right here where it doesn't look real. It looks overly, it doesn't look like it doesn't look like metal. It doesn't look like it's metal. It doesn't look like it has any real wear on it. Like it looks like they tried to weather it a little bit here around like the ornamentations, but there's still just like a Party City kind of look to it. But the character of Mihawk though, looks spot on. Like he looks like the character from the anime. Yeah, Zoro looks fine. Not much to do when your hair is cut short and like your most remarkable physical attribute are the 3 earrings you have. Sanji and Zoro have always been fan favorites as handsome characters in the anime. I think that's going to cause issues for the female fan base. Why do you think that? I think Zoro and Sanji have always been fan favorites because they're like they're the strongest on well, outside of Luffy, they're the strongest. Like Sanji kicks and Zoro has fucking 3 swords, which was always kind of interesting to me. Part of what kept me from getting into One Piece when I first started watching it was like Zoro would put a sword in his mouth and I'd be like, how the fuck are you gonna fight with a sword in your mouth? That doesn't make any sense at all. And I was expecting to see it make sense, and they never have a good way to animate it. So it always just made me be like, oh, that's just kind of weird. But eventually, as I started forcing myself deeper into the show, like, the sword in his mouth doesn't really matter. It's about the character and his desire to like endure whatever kind of pain and suffering he needs to like advance, and his steadfast devotion to Luffy. It's like, okay, I understand what this character is all about. And he add like the weird poems that he sometimes says before doing like a special move. I think that sort of stuff ingratiates them. I guess maybe I never looked at them as like, you know, Bishonen type characters. They never really gave me that vibe. But I mean, I don't know. I'm a cis het male, so what do I know about what women are attracted to? Zoro looks fine, but Sanji in this looks like a greaseball bum in a suit. I kind of get the sense that that's what the character is supposed to be in the anime too. I kind of get the sense that that's maybe just Sanji's character, but I don't know. Like the hair is so bad. His character, Sanji's hair is pretty bad in this. Oh god. Buggy looks fucking wild. I don't know if there's a really good way to do Buggy. Buggy is such a weird ass character in general that I don't know if there's a really good way to do it and not make it look weird as hell. This might be the best way to do something like Buggy. Ooh, I don't know. Like This character is going to be entirely dependent on the actor and whatever charisma the actor can bring to it. Buggy is a love him or hate him type character. People either like him or they hate the shit out of him. And I'm kind of annoyed by him. So we'll see what this guy does with this role. I like that they aren't trying to scale back. Like this, his outfit doesn't look like cosplay, but it doesn't look quote unquote real. It has a weird vibe to it. I think it works for the most part, but it's just the dude's face. Like this is gonna be weird. This is gonna be weird. Dollar Store Joker, is that Jared Leto too? I will say this dude looks much more like a Joker than Jared Leto did. Easily. And this guy probably doesn't have his own cult. This is the part. Okay, so this is the part where things start to like fall to where things start to fall apart. Ayo. This looks weird. And I don't know if there's a good way to translate Buggy's power in live action without it looking weird. He gets cut up, and all of his cut up pieces can move autonomously. He can control them remotely, I guess. How do you portray that? How else can you portray that but in this weird way? Okay, and now this part. There are some things you can get away with in an anime that you cannot get away with in live action. Shouting your special attacks, there's just something about that doesn't translate well in live action. I don't know if I've ever seen an instance where it did. I remember in that old Street Fighter movie with Jean-Claude Van Damme, I think they tried to do that he may have said Hadouken, I can't quite recall, but it never works out very well. It never works out. And this hurt. Oh boy. Okay, this hurt. I will say, like, as someone who appreciated this trailer more than I thought I would, clearly appreciated it more than you did, Noctiety, but like still recognizes its flaws. This hurt. Like, to me, this could have been left out of the trailer altogether, or they could have just like muted his voice or something. Like, I don't like that. I'm not a fan of that. They could leave Chop Chop Cannon on the cutting room floor. And it looks weird too, but again, that's just a part of Buggy's powers looking weird when translating it into live action. He kind of looks like Steve Carell from The Office right there. Like, he's like a dismembered clown version of Steve Carell. You're so punny. I try. I mean, I think that for the most part, again, I think the sets look fine. The hair's a problem for me. I think the sets look fine. I think a lot of the choreography. What is going on with this guy? Is this AI? Is this like an AI generated face? That's kind of creeping me out. I think a lot of the fight choreography that we've seen kind of looks. His hair is so weird. I think it's gonna be the hair. For most of these characters, I think the hair is going to be the make it or break it more than anything. Like, the costuming's going to be kind of off because, again, he's wearing a contemporary suit surrounded by dudes that are dressed like 18th century pirates. I think it's going to be the hair that's going to be more of a make it or break it for a lot of the visual gelling. I think a lot of the fight choreography looks cool, though. I mean, that's kind of neat looking a little bit, right? Isn't it? I mean, it looks kind of cool. I mean, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to choreograph him fighting with a sword in his mouth, but I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with it. That was kind of weird. He just kind of stopped in midair. He comes in with a jump kick and stops in midair. And then just plops down. I mean, it doesn't look bad. It just looks weird. It's a cool looking set. Again, I think, and like I'm also when I'm talking about this, I'm comparing it to like what's a live action anime out there? Oh God, Dragon Ball Evolution. We don't need to talk about that. Knights of Zodiac Kingdom. Oh, Alita Battle Angel is almost kind of a cheat because that was a blockbuster Hollywood movie that was like produced by James Cameron and directed by Robert Rodriguez. So even though I didn't like this movie per se, like, it still looked good. And so but it kind of cheated to get there. Like, I'm sure any one of these other movies would have looked good if James Cameron was producing it and Robert Rodriguez was directing it. Kenshin, yeah, Kenshin looks worse than Zatoichi. I don't understand why. I mean, you should be able to make a cool looking samurai movie. Bleach. I didn't know they made a live action Bleach. I didn't even know they made a live action Bleach. I think I liked Bleach, but I think I stopped watching it for the same reasons that I couldn't get into One Piece, and that it was just like wasting my time. Let's see what Bleach looked like. I think I liked the anime. Okay. I'm getting a strong cosplay quality from this too. Like the monster designs are fine, but the CGI for them looks a little off. What's up with the music? What is going on here? That looked, in my view, that looked worse than One Piece. But only because, like, again, the costumes look bad. The monster designs are cool, but the CGI just didn't quite work well. It's really, and it's set in a contemporary time, so that also just makes it look like cosplay. I think the one thing that One Piece has going for it to not make it look like cosplay is that it's not set in a contemporary setting, so it doesn't look like you just caught a bunch of LARPers leaving like an anime convention somewhere, which I got a little bit of that vibe from that at least. I guess as far as how it looks stacked up to other live action anime, maybe Bleach is a little bit better looking. I understand Nami isn't much older than 20, but she looks 12 in this. But you could argue that live action Ghost in the Shell was a blockbuster too, but that was trash too. Yeah, I forgot about that one too, the ScarJo Ghost in the Shell. And yeah, that is a blockbuster movie, and I'm sure it looks better than all of these. I mean, I thought Battle Angel Alita, I thought that movie sucked too. But it looked good. And I'm sure Ghost in the Shell looked good too, while also sucking. Like, it's hard to do live action adaptation of anime that both looks good and is good. For whatever reason, like, they haven't figured it out yet. Again, if you want to count Detective Pikachu, I'm willing to count it. But other than that, it's real tough. $110 million budget. Oh, it had a budget behind it. There was a live action Full Metal Alchemist. Oh, that looks awful. Just the poster by itself, or just like the art for it by itself looks awful. It looks like a meme. It looks like the meme of that dude on the beach that's like on his knees. That's what this looks like. It's like that meme. Oh boy. I'm not even gonna justify watching that one. Let's just chalk that up to the crap pile. I don't know. I think One Piece. I'm not sold that One Piece isn't the best looking live action adaptation. I'm not sold that it's not that. After watching that, I think being set in a fantastical environment with all of this shit going on, all these crazy ass ships. Again, the ships look cool. I think the ships look good. That being its setting goes a long way towards pushing it past the LARPer contingent. Like, this restaurant looks kind of weird, but I'm sure it'll look fine in motion. Oh yeah, Arlong. Arlong looks weird. I wish they had gotten somebody that was like bigger. They should have gotten the dude that played the mountain. Should have gotten him to play Arlong. I think it's hard for us to imagine more dated outfits working in modern day. Even with Detective Pikachu, it had a cute story, but the Pokemon didn't look natural in the CGI. It didn't, but there was never a part in that movie where I felt like it took me out of it. I think that they did a good job of, they made the environment fantastical enough where the CGI characters didn't stand out. If you take a character like Mewtwo or whatever, Jigglypuff or Ghastly, and you put them in the middle of the streets of Tokyo, like in Bleach, in that Bleach trailer, they're gonna look weird as shit. It's gonna look like you're playing Pokemon Go. But if you put them in a weird, futuristic sci-fi setting with lots of neon lights and maybe some weird architecture and like some colors glowing here and there, they look a little less weird. Like, you can still tell they're CG, but they look more in place than they would like just being out in like Shibuya Cho. But if you went more realistic to what Pokemon will look like in terms of the animals we're familiar with, they would look horrendous. Oh yeah, you can't do that. You cannot do that. You can't make Pokemon look realistic, or it would give children nightmares. It would give some adults nightmares. That would be awful. That would be awful. Although that would actually make for a really cool horror movie adaptation if someone wanted to make a Pokemon horror movie. That would be the way to go, making the Pokemon look as realistic as possible. See, I feel like they would have gotten away with live action Digimon more than Pokemon because they could literally look like anything because they're creatures made of data, so it would register mentally better. I wish I could remember Digimon, but I can't. I can't remember Digimon at all. So I can't. I mean, I remember when it came out, and I was like, man, everybody's making their own dime store Pokemon. I just can't remember. I can't remember anything about it though. So you could be right. I don't like this set. This set looks bad. I'll say that. Of all the different set pieces that I've heaped praise on in this trailer, this one looks like a set from like Star Trek: The Next Generation. Like when the crew lands on a planet and it's like some shitty set that they have to walk around and investigate stuff on. Like that's what this looks like to me. This looks like a shitty Star Trek set. I don't know why. Maybe it's just because it feels small and boxed in and like the walls are Spartan. You only get like one color tone. I think maybe that's what it is. You get one color tone from the sand and the walls that all look the same, and then the sky is not that different. It has a very bland, like soundstagey kind of look. I really wish they had gone with an actor that was like more beefed up. They need a beefed up Arlong. This dude, I don't know what's going on with this dude. This dude just looks like he works at a tiki bar. Like he's got a pop up tiki bar by the beach. He's a little disgruntled that people keep stealing his cups. Clearly, he has a sign on his bar that says, "Do not take the cups. We sell them at our store." But nobody listens, so now he's just in a bad mood because like he has to pay for that out of pocket. They get compared a lot, but they're nothing alike. I got Tatooine vibes from that scene, but somehow Tatooine looked better. Don't know what it was about Tatooine that made it look better than. And we did just see a little snippet, so it's probably not a fair comparison to compare a small little clip from a trailer that we've saw. That's why we watched on the internet to like one of the most iconic scenes in cinema history. One of the most iconic set pieces in cinema history, but there was something a little bit more real and fleshed out about Tatooine that that scene we just watched was missing. That looks like Matt Mercer's basement D&D set. Yeah, this is also this is also not a great set piece here. Like this looks like, I mean, it's pretty clearly CGI. You can tell by his boots that he's green screening it, but like it's not good CGI. It looks, yeah, it looks like what you just said there. It's like a D&D basement set. They need to work on the green screen on this one. The lighting is not natural. He's not even casting a shadow. There's a bunch of light pouring in from behind him. So he and his sword should be casting shadows. The fact that they're not is weird. There's like a weird crispness. Like for all the backlight that he has, there's a weird crispness to the edges of his body that would normally get blown out. It would normally be blown out by the light behind him, and you would see more feathering on his edges, like he was almost like he was bleeding out of the light. But you're not getting that here, so it just makes it look. It looks like one of those old FMV games from the early 2000s, or even earlier than that, where it's very obviously a video composite of some actor superimposed on like a pre-rendered background. It's not the best look. This looks cool. This is also probably where a lot of that $18 million budget went to. Built a minor town and then smashed it. I mean, they do show a lot of pirates. They actually show Shanks, which is interesting. There's a lot of people that don't like this actor for Shanks, and I get it. Shanks has more of an edgy look to him, and this guy kind of looks a little soft. I don't know why they went with such a soft looking actor for Shanks. I'm sure he's a good actor, but I mean, for knocking it out of the park with Mihawk, I can't think of the appropriate baseball analogy for this, but they did not knock it out of the park for Shanks. Again, Usopp is cool. Usopp, I like the casting for Usopp. I think he looks great, and I like his shirts too. I need to find that. I'll wear that shirt myself. He's doing some wicked slide, some ACDC slide, slashing people's legs. Again, that sword just not doing it for me. But the character again, like he looks exactly like this in the anime. Like they got this guy right. Like they got his eye, like the shape of his eyes are spot on. Obviously, they got his contacts in there, his eyebrows, his beard. You know, like his beard look is weird, but it doesn't look weird in the sense that like they glued some beard onto him. They didn't look, it doesn't look that weird to me. Like the shape of his beard. Like obviously he had a beard, they just cut it and it looks fine. Like he looks fine in my view. He wouldn't be seen, like the entire front of him would look like a shadow. Yeah, like the amount of light that was coming off from behind him would have at the very least split into him. Lol, I didn't see it at the first time. The contacts look bad though. I don't think so. I don't think they look that bad. I mean, they're contacts, so they look like contacts to me. They look like, his eye color. The character has eyes that color. So to me it just looks like the character. Like if you're not familiar, and that's another part of what's going to make this show weird. Like if you're not familiar with One Piece and all of the crazy ass characters that are in it, then any normie that walks into this is going to be like, what the fuck am I looking at? For anybody else, like a lot of the One Piece fans that watch this trailer and pick it apart, the one consistent thing they've all said is that they like how Mihawk looks. And I agree with them. I think he looks fine. With $18 million budget, they could have afforded so much more detail. I don't disagree with you. But I don't know what they... Until we watch those episodes, I don't know where the money went. Like, again, we have set pieces in here where it's like, yeah, they built a town so that they could destroy it. And they built some pirate ships so that they could have seafaring battles. So they're putting the money into set pieces, clearly, maybe more so than set pieces in CGI. They're putting the money into set pieces in CGI, maybe more so than like costuming. Maybe they should have diverted some of that into costuming. They certainly should have put more in the wig department. I think the wig department was spared a little bit too much money. Until I watch the episodes, I'm gonna have to see exactly where the budget went into. I mean, that creature kind of looks cool. I mean, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that creature. And sea creatures play such a role in this world that we'll have to see, to what extent they actually utilize stuff like this. But I mean, that's a pretty good looking. It looks honestly, it looks better than some of the creatures in The Witcher. I will say that. Some of those Witcher creatures, some of them look okay, but some of them are like, what the fuck were you doing? Okay. Once you get to Luffy's powers, this is where again, like it's the same problem with Buggy is how do you make his power not look super fucking weird? And I don't know if they found the answer. I don't know if they found the answer to that question. I mean, I see what they're doing, and I'm not. I mean, can you make something like this look? How does this look? Does this look good? There's something about maybe you know what? Maybe his arms, for being like rubbery arms, maybe his arms look fine, but there's something about Arlong in this scene that doesn't look right. There's something about like the way he's falling back. It doesn't look like he's falling. It doesn't look like he's being pushed back by a punch. Like it doesn't look like he's being punched and is flying back as the result of a punch. It looks like he's being pulled back, like a mechanism is attached to his back, and that someone just yanked on him, and which I mean is stunt wise how that would happen, but you're not supposed to. You're supposed to make it look like that's not what's happening. You're supposed to make it look like he just got the shit punched out of him, but that's not. And I think the way that the character looks, his outfit, the way it's superimposed on the background, I think all of that makes the rubbery arm stuff look a little worse than it probably normally would. Like, I don't think there's a better way to make Luffy doing the Gatling attack. I don't think there's a better way to make it look convincing, live action, than what they're doing here. It's the way that the character he's attacking is responding to it. That, I think, is what's killing the cell. Like it just looks weird. It just looks because he's like floating back. He's floating back in a weird way. Like he should have. I feel like he should have more velocity. I feel like he should have more velocity to his flying back. I think Luffy's attack looks fine, but Arlong, the way they superimposed him getting attacked, I think that's the problem. So it ends up making Luffy's attack look weird. But I mean, that looks cool. A lot of the other stuff they do with CGI looks fine. Oh, here's another. Let's see how this one looks. Now that we're hyper analyzing this in like slow motion. That looked fine. He stretched his leg out and kicked people. I don't have a problem with that. That looked perfectly fine. Let's put it into perspective. Annabelle, the horror movie, a horror movie that blew up with obvious parts of CGI and such, was made in entirety for 6.5 million. Yes, it didn't need as much CGI. Well, I mean, that's okay, that's another thing, is like, I think sometimes a lot of the budgets for these things, they get out of control unnecessarily. I think you could make a lot of blockbuster movies. The average budget for a lot of blockbuster movies ends up being somewhere around 150 to 200 million. That just seems to be the average for a blockbuster movie budget. But I think you can make a blockbuster caliber movie, a blockbuster quality movie, for a much cheaper budget than that. I'm not sure why that's not the case. Maybe, if you can convince people to give you $100 million rather than $50 million, then you convince them to give you $100 million, because why short yourself? Maybe it's as simple as that. You can obviously make really top quality AAA blockbuster caliber movies with the tools that are available, with what Unreal Engine can do and with what you can do with all sorts of other editing techniques, and you don't need super crazy budgets anymore. It's insane to me to think that so many of these movies have massive budgets. But I will say, another thing that Annabelle had going for it, absent lack of CG, is the lack of characters. There were only a handful of characters in that movie. The reason why a lot of horror movies get made is because someone has access to a house, and that's pretty much where it starts. Oh, we have a house. Or there's a house out here we could shoot in. Or, there's an abandoned hospital in West Texas we could shoot in. You just have a single building. And when you have a single location, you do a lot. You could stretch that out. You could stretch that out so much, and that's why a lot of horror movies are haunted house movies. This house is possessed by a demon, or someone died in this house, or we're trapped in this house, and etc., etc. When you have one location, maybe two. There might be 2 or 3 locations in your average horror movie. Usually they go on the road somewhere, they're driving, and maybe they go to a store, they go to another character's house, but generally speaking, you have 2 or 3 locations, and none of them have to be specially built for the shoot. So, because they're pre-existing houses or pre-existing storefronts or whatever. And that dramatically helps cut down the budget. Your entire movie is shot in a house. Annabelle is shot almost entirely in a house. That helps too. For something like One Piece, you can't get away with that. The entire thing is about pirates on the open sea. Traveling to various locations is gonna be a necessity. You've got 2 options in tackling that. You either do a shit ton of location scouting, find all of these locations that fit the story, and then you shoot on those locations. To me, that's the preferable method. You're not using a lot of CGI to get your shots. You could get a good number of shots that look realistic because you're actually there. You're not superimposing them on a weird background. But there are limitations to that too, which is 1, travel cost. If you're gonna do a shoot in an actual location, you're gonna be paying to pack up all of your equipment, to get your gaffers, your lighters, your sound guys, your cameramen, your DPs, your production crew, your cast, your actors, and everybody else. You're paying for all of those dudes to fly out to whatever location they're going to be shooting at. Once you get to that location, you're crossing your fingers that the production doesn't have any hiccups, that the weather is cooperative. Things that looked good on paper might not translate well once the cameras start rolling, so then you have to start readapting. Okay, that doesn't look right. Let's block this scene in this particular way, and then you're doing rewrites on the fly. Okay, that line doesn't really work as well as we thought it would. Let's change it up. How about we try this? How about we do this? Let's vamp for a second. Why don't you just do a little bit of improv, and we'll see what works, we'll see what doesn't, etc., etc. Once you start doing that sort of stuff, you're chewing up daylight. You have less time in the day to film, especially if lighting is an important, if natural light is an important component to the scenes that you're shooting. Like if you're shooting interior, for whatever reason, I don't know why you would be on location someplace weird when you're doing interior shots. Ideally, you would do your interior shots all at once, someplace where you can, on some soundstage or someplace where it isn't quite as costly. But if you have to do a bunch of reshoots, you want to make sure that you account for that in the time that you budget there, just in case you run out of daylight. As the sun moves across the sky, it changes the composition of all your shots. If you don't want to deal with that shit, because that can get super annoying, especially if your production crew is inexperienced, then you don't do location shooting. You shoot on a green screen. You can control whatever you want to control. You can control the sun, we want the sun to be over here this time. Move the sun over here. You can control a lot of stuff when you're shooting on green screens, but it doesn't look good. And it's cheaper. It's a hell of a lot cheaper to shoot on a green screen, but it doesn't look as good as shooting on location. It's starting to look better. The technology that we have now is making it much, much, much better. But I mean, there's still, if you want a good look, there's still no replacement for being on location. One Piece has the issue of, we have a story that is inherently about pirates traveling on the sea, traveling from location to location. Is this show going to be entirely shot on sound stages and green screens? Maybe that's the only way to do it, because again, unlike Annabelle, which only has like, you know, six or seven cast members, this show has a fucking shit ton of characters. On top of the dudes that we're just seeing on screen right now, there are all sorts of other characters that are rolling in and out of this thing. So now we have to account for the budget of paying all of those actors. Do we want to pay for them to be flying on location too? Or do we just want to shoot? Maybe it makes sense for some of the characters to be on location if they're really important to the story, but if they're not, if it's just background actors and shit, then yeah, we're gonna do that on a green screen or something. You know, it has all these kinds of considerations that take into account how a show like this can end up with an $18 million budget. I don't doubt that you can make something look really, really unbelievably fucking awesome for like $5 million. What do you end up getting from the story you're trying to tell? You're probably not gonna have like an epic with all of these characters and all of these realistic looking locations. You could still end up with something cool, but it's gonna end up looking really scaled down. As the latest in Netflix's woeful lineup of live action animated adaptations, they've got a lot going against them that they're trying to surmount, which is, this isn't a cheap product. All of the other products have been lambasted as looking cheap or fake or lame or just plain shitty. Death Note or Cowboy Bebop or anything else. Like, they're trying to surmount that. The best way to do it is, unfortunately, you're just gonna be spending money making shit look as realistic as possible, to the extent that you can with a property like One Piece. Again, the show is so fucking weird. There's a lot of fantastical elements to it. There's a lot of I always bungle the pronunciation of the word anachronistic. There's a lot of weird anachronistic stuff. Even in this scene that we're looking at, there's some weird anachronistic stuff. What is this shirt that Zoro's wearing? He got that from like, what is that mall in the store that sells like tropical t-shirts? PacSun, yeah, exactly. It looks like he's wearing a PacSun shirt. Like, it looks like he went and got that from there. And then this dude's just in like some random ass suit, and she's just like, there's so much contemporary clothing going on for the character. I think it kind of works for Usopp. It would have been interesting to see what his anime costume would have looked like in live action, but I think he wears overalls. I don't know, maybe they thought that the overalls weren't gonna be a good fit. Okay, fine. But like, why does every character in this, outside of Luffy, look so contemporary? They all look like they just went shopping, with the exception of Sanji, who looks like he got his suit from like Men's Warehouse or maybe Burlington Coat Factory at a discount. Everybody else just looks like, yeah, they went to PacSun, which is, again, like, costuming is so much. Costuming is a heavy part of making the sell on this thing. Spend the money to make their costumes look good. If you have 18 million an episode, figure out what your important parts are. Reuse costumes if you have to. Make the costume look awesome, and if they have to wear it in multiple scenes that maybe would make people question, hey, isn't he wearing the same thing like 3 episodes in a row? So what? You think he's got a washing machine on that fucking pirate ship? He wears the same thing. It looks good. Make it look really fucking good, and then make him wear it more often than not. They don't need all these costume changes, especially if the costumes they're changing just looks like regular ass clothes. Like, I don't like that about this. I definitely don't like this shot here. Big thumbs down. I don't like it. Like, they should look more unique. But again, in adapting One Piece, the anime, like, it's clear that Ichiro Oda is a fashionista, because characters change outfits in that show a lot, and a lot of times, like, there's some pretty cool outfits. there's some pretty cool outfits on the show. I will say that. You don't see it reflected here very well, but maybe that's what this is an attempt to do. Maybe this is an attempt to, and Oda plays a big role in the production of this show. Maybe this is just a reflection of his interest in fashion. Okay, it's One Piece, that happens. I just think that when you've got so much going against you in the live action anime adaptation space, this doesn't help. I would have preferred more effort on the costumes. I would have preferred more effort on making awesome looking costumes that fit with the character vibe. Like Zoro could be wearing something that maybe has a similar pattern and a similar color scheme, but it isn't just a button up. Like it could be like a kimono or something, or a sash, or anything that would make it have this vibe, but not just look like he bought it on sale somewhere. I missed a few of your comments while I was going on my extended rant. The first Star Wars movie was made with $11 million and the airships and such, and that looked much more natural. Yeah, they were all models. I'm a big fan of using models whenever possible. But we are also amid a writer's protest to a writer's strike, yes. I guess all of this, but this is all pre-writer's strike, pre-actor strike. And as far as I know, the VFX industry are not on strike. They're just overworked. Pan's Labyrinth was made with 19 million. Pan's Labyrinth looked great too. Pan's Labyrinth looked really cool. That was one of the first movies I watched at Alamo Drafthouse when I first moved here. About a couple years after I first moved here. Realistically, what pirate is gonna look clean and pristine all the time, especially since we just saw Zoro sliding on his knees across sand? They got decked out for. I mean, I'm guessing this is them arriving at Arlong Park. They wanted to make sure they were clean for the occasion. They're like, all right, everybody, let's put all of our stuff in the wash. I was gonna say break out the ironing boards, but it doesn't look like he did that here. They got cleaned up for the occasion. I will say one thing though, like, they've been showing some like behind the scene videos and stuff from the cast, just like hanging out. The cast all seems fun. They all seem fun and fine. They seem like they're really good friends with one another. They always seem like they're having a good time together, which actually makes it feel like they're more the Straw Hats than just like actors playing the Straw Hats. So I am curious about how that chemistry is going to translate on screen, because they seem like Straw Hat pirates having fun with one another, you know, just in those behind the scenes clips that they post on social media. Again, I don't have a problem per se with the casting. I think it can work in that respect. I think there are other things that probably work against the like the wigs and the costuming. But Pan's Labyrinth was made with 1 million. Wait, was it made with 1 million, or was it earlier you said 19 million? Pan's Labyrinth was made with 1 million, had multiple locations, more convincing monsters and creatures, more characters than Annabelle. So is it really an excuse? Made with 1 million more. I see what you're saying. Made with 1 million more. I mean, I don't know about the production of Pan's Labyrinth, to be perfectly honest with you. I mean, I can understand it being made. I mean, Pan's Labyrinth looks fucking awesome. So yeah, I see all 19 million on the screen for sure. But I don't know about the production. I don't know. Like, I don't recall there being a lot of characters in Pan's Labyrinth. And as far as like the sets that they built, like, I can't really recall. I don't know. I'd have to go back and watch the movie. But I mean, it's a little bit apples to oranges in that regard. But I guess Annabelle is also apples to oranges too. We're also talking about, like, I would say, and earlier I made a comment about whether your production crew is capable or not, when I was referring to the intricacies of you know, shooting on location and making sure that you're on time and under budget. And the reason why I bring that up is because, well, as you just said, it was Guillermo del Toro film. That's the reason I bring that up. Like, Guillermo del Toro is not a slouch. You know, we're talking about an Oscar award-winning director who has been nominated for many. Won one, I think, with Shape of Water. And like, the dude knows his shit. The guy, he knows how to shoot. He knows how to run a set. He has a vision and he knows how to execute his vision. And it's a little bit easier to do that on a movie than like a multi-episode show, because there's so many other moving pieces with respects to getting episodes of a show written, produced, shot, in the can, and then making sure that they all connect properly and fit properly, making sure that shit that you're shooting for episode 7 doesn't contradict or invalidate something that you shot for episode 4. Like there's a lot of other moving pieces that comes with television production. If you have a dude like Guillermo del Toro, and admittedly there's not a lot of dudes like Guillermo del Toro, your shit's just gonna run a lot smoother. You're gonna end up with a better product at the end of it. That dude's just a rock star, and it's kind of unfair to compare most directors to him. Only a handful, in my view. I don't think I've ever watched a Guillermo del Toro movie that I disliked. Nightmare Alley was awesome, and I love Pan's Labyrinth. Like, Guillermo del Toro is also a notorious weeb. Like, he knows anime. And when I watched Pacific Rim, the mech was like took a sword out and like slashed the creature against the sun. I was like, oh, this dude definitely likes Gundam. Like, there's no shot. And he wanted to do a live action adaptation of Monster for HBO. He was shopping it with them, but for whatever reason, HBO did not want to do it, which is like criminal. It is criminal, because Monster is probably my other favorite manga. Monster and Berserk. And Monster is just an incredible piece of work. And it would have been awesome to see Guillermo del Toro bring that into an HBO series. They should have done it. It's a crime that they didn't. But he's a dude who definitely would have known how to do it. But it's still not an excuse, because when you take on a live action project that is a well-known anime of more than 1,000 episodes, you better be prepared. Without having watched the episodes, I'm not really sure if I could say that they were or weren't prepared. It's also hard to, like, because the other thing that they're doing here, when you mention more than 1,000 episodes, it seems like this show, maybe this first season, starts, it obviously starts from Romance Dawn. Seems like it ends with Arlong Park. They're getting a story within, I can't remember if this is going to be 8 episodes or 10, but they're getting a story of roughly, how many episodes was it up until Arlong Park? East Blue is 61 episodes, so they're squeezing 61 episodes into 8. Because Guillermo del Toro also has done stuff for Netflix before. He did the Cabinets of Curiosities series. Yeah, I watched that. That was also a lot of fun. There were only a couple of episodes of that I wasn't a super big fan of. But for the most part, I enjoyed that series. Because then it can suffer the same fate as Warcraft. Too much story and lore chopped down into too short a time. And there's a real possibility that that's going to be a problem for it. One Piece has a lot going on in it. Probably has too much going on in it. I don't know why they chose that to... Well, I do know why they chose One Piece to adapt it to a live action. It's the most popular fucking piece of written fiction ever made. So yeah, of course they're going to adapt it. But it might not work out for them just because there's so much going on. So this was a piece written by the creator Ichiro Oda shortly after the trailer went live. So the live action One Piece. The teaser and the trailer are now out, and the launch date for the show itself is set for August 31st. I'll say this, there were no compromises on this show. And the festivities have already begun. It's already fun seeing the flurry of reactions after each release of information. And the very fact that adapting One Piece into live action was conceived 7 years ago is wild. How would this world be brought to life? There is so much that went into it. All the efforts by the actors, the building of the world and the costumes, presenting things in a way that can only be done in live action, the dialogue, and the entire process of so many people putting their heads together was a festivity in and of itself. After the launch, I'm sure I'll hear about some people pointing out how this character is missing, or that scene is omitted, or this bit is different from the manga. But I'm sure they'll come from a place of love, so I intend to enjoy even those comments. Lol. The story will span 8 episodes. Okay, so it's 8 episodes. And take you up through you know where, which I think is a grand line. Even after the shoot was over, there were numerous scenes the production agreed to reshoot because I felt they weren't good enough to put out into the world. On the other hand, there were also some lines that I thought didn't feel like Luffy on paper, but when I saw the filmed scenes, I went, it works when it's Inaki performing it as Luffy. As a matter of fact, it works great. Inaki is the actor who plays Luffy. There were so many things that had to be done to keep things from looking too unnatural in live action. The producers and the crew are pros at live action, and frankly, they're One Piece superfans too. The more knowledgeable you are about One Piece, the more you're likely to notice the love they poured into this. It was June when we made the final decision to go ahead and launch this show. My editor, who'd worked so hard on this, actually cried as he said, "It was such a long journey. Lol, not that working hard on something guarantees success, of course." I mean, that line right there is kind of telling. Basically, it just sounds to me like he's trying to he knows what he's dealing with. He knows what he's dealing with in doing a live action anime adaptation. He's heard and seen, and maybe he's even made the criticisms against Cowboy Bebop and Death Note and whatnot. Like, he knows that he's gonna get criticized. He knows that the live action One Piece is likely gonna hit the same buzzsaw that those shows hit, and he definitely put this statement out as a way to kind of get ahead of it, as a way to kind of come to terms with it, in addition to being like, we're just letting you know, don't expect a one-to-one translation because it is live action and some things just didn't work. He admit that he forced reshoots. They shot some scenes, but he forced reshoots because he didn't think they were good enough. What is that an admission of? Are there scenes that he had to compromise? He said there were no compromises, so maybe he's being truthful, but I mean, I read that and I think, well, maybe there are some scenes that he had to compromise on because you can't reshoot everything. I don't know. It just seems like he knows that the criticism is coming and he's just trying to like gird himself and the fandom for it, especially when he says, not that working hard on something guarantees success, of course. By now, I just love this production team and the cast so much that I can't wait for them to get the acclaim they deserve from everyone around the world. And if by chance people have some gripes, I'll be there to receive them together. Now, whatever feelings you choose to harbor in the meantime, it's still going to be 1 month, so please have some tea as you wait. So yeah, he knows the criticism. He's heard the criticism, and he knows what's coming. So he's doing what he can to get out ahead of it, and to kind of have a positive foot forward, you know. And I give him credit for that. I'll give him some credit for that, sure. I mean, all in all, I think I was going into watching this trailer with like my expectations were subterranean. Like I was expecting it to look unwatchable, just brutally bad. And I think the fact that it's north of that, however north of that it might actually be, the fact that it's north of that, I view as a win. Like, I'm willing to give this show a shot. And I thought Cowboy Bebop looked like shit from the trailers, but I still gave it a shot. I may have watched half of those episodes, so I stuck in for a little while. So I'm gonna do the same for One Piece. I'll give it a shot. I think it looks better than Cowboy Bebop. Here you get your Easter eggs of other pirates, and we have Alvidia, who probably is going to show up in the first episode anyway, so that might not be much of an Easter egg, but you got Foxy here. So Foxy is definitely a Easter egg for a later season, if they make it to that later season. Bellamy, there's also Bellamy, that's much later on too. I don't know, I think it looks okay. If I really wanted to rip it apart, I can. Obviously, I spent an extended amount of time ranting about their contemporary costumes and some of the CGI. But if it's fun, then if the show is fun, then I won't care. If I have fun with the characters and the cast, and it's a fun adventure, I won't give a shit about the other stuff. The onus is on them to make me like the characters. They can do that, then I'm back. Then I'm on board. I'm on board. Okay, you won me over, One Piece. You won me over at least enough to watch that first episode. We'll see where we go from there. Do we even want to read the YouTube comments on this one? I gotta say, the casting and VFX look very on point. I'm excited who's with me. I don't know about VFX looking on point. I do like the casting, and I've said that before. But the VFX is kind of hit or miss, honestly, depending on what you're looking at. Maybe it's because I don't have much expectations from the beginning after being disappointed by other live actions, but I think this definitely looks much better. Shank's actor is a bit of a letdown for me, but Arlong and Mihawk look so promising here. As a huge fan of Zoro, I'm really glad Makinyu nailed it so far. Hope it won't disappoint me. Okay, so, the general vibe, I'm actually tearing up. This is incredible. The wanted posters for Foxy and Bellamy, the hat scene, Zoro pledging himself to Luffy. Okay, so this is a dude that's just gonna like it no matter what. And I was talking with RJ. He commented on my post. I said, this looks like it could be simultaneously good and bad, but in a fun way. And if they can crank it all the way to Arlong Park in 8 to 10 episode seasons, then they already crushed the anime in terms of pacing. And then he goes, like I just tweeted, if we're judging solely off of production design and visuals, what they accomplished is fucking incredible. So he is of the mind that the visuals are fucking incredible. I think that's a bit much. I could appreciate a lot of aspects of the visuals for sure. There are some that I think look great. There's some that I think look not great. But I mean, he seems to think that they look incredible. It's like, I appreciate that they're embracing being a live action anime, just being goofy as shit and not trying to ground it at all. Which I agree. It's a one-to-one adaptation. Will that work for people who aren't fans and don't know what the fuck this property is? I have no clue. To which my response was, nah, this one is strictly for the fans. Which is okay because One Piece is a hella large fan base, but the wacky style and colors works better for this than Cowboy Bebop. So yeah, this and this speaks to, when I read this comment here, like, I'm actually tearing up. This is incredible. Like, that's the real takeaway here. This show is strictly for the fans. If you're a normie, you can give it a shot. You probably won't care too much for it, but you can give it a shot. But it's not for you. It is for dudes like this. It is for dudes that are going to be tearing up while they're watching it. This show is almost exclusively made just for One Piece super fans, or even just One Piece casual fans. I'm sure the casual fans will probably appreciate it more than the super fans. Oh, my artist is texting me. She saw Barbie and she said it was so good. I've been hearing a lot of good things about it. I'm actually going to see Oppenheimer tomorrow. Well, this is the end of my stream for tonight, as I have to go. But thank you for joining me. Thank you for indulging me as I ranted at length for 2 hours about One Piece. Well, good night. Hey, Poxborn, you came in just in time to watch me leave. What a bummer. Assuming that you're not a fan of One Piece, I'll say you probably didn't miss a great deal tonight, as I literally just spent the last 2 hours ranting about One Piece. Hope you have a good one, Devin. Thank you, I appreciate that. Hope you have a good night too. Lol, you listening to my ranting too? You had nicer things to say than I did. I think you had appropriate things to say as someone who very adequately doesn't care too much for One Piece. I'll say that. I can defend One Piece if I really wanted to, and in some respects I will, but I'll never begrudge anyone who has a negative opinion on it, because it is a pain in the ass show. I enjoy the anime occasionally, but the live action looks, well, you know what? You may want to watch the VOD then, because we had a very interesting discussion, Noctidi and I. We had a very interesting discussion about the live action. We watched the trailer and then we went through it in slow-mo and talked at length about what I liked and what I didn't like, and I guess basically what she didn't like. All right. My cats are like, dude, we need water. I'm gonna get you some water. Kitty's getting big. Yeah, they're not kitties anymore. They're just full-fledged cats now. They're just full-fledged cats. So I gotta make sure these cats have their drinking water. All of it, LMAO. JK, some of it was okay. Yeah, I mean that's the best you're gonna get, honestly. Like, if someone that doesn't like One Piece thinks that some of parts of the trailer look okay, then honestly, that's a dub. that's a dub. But the term good seems generous. To someone critical, it may just come off as high-grade B-movie show, which I think is accurate. I think that's what it looks like, but I could have fun with I like B-movies. I have fun with B-movies and budget TV shows, if they're done really well, if the characters are likable. Like I said before, it's all going to come down to whether or not I have fun with the cast. If I have fun with the crew, then I don't give a shit about anything else. I'll watch whatever low-budget schlock you sling my way if I'm having fun with everyone. That's about where I stand with that. But with that, I'm taking off. See you later, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday night. Good night, everyone. Take it easy. Alita Battle Angel. Oh boy, I've got a bunch of Zack Snyder people in my replies right now. Just the saddest of the sad sacks. Blah, 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 all that stuff.